Today is October the 21st. Why does God restore us? Let's find out together as we read Hosea 11. So in the book of Hosea, we saw the story of a man who married a prostitute to symbolize Israel prostituting itself with other gods. Hosea divorces his wife, but then comes back to her and loves her again, restores her, actually purchases her on the slavery market. Now we come to the section of Hosea where the prophet talks to Israel. And he says, God will restore you as well. Hosea chapter 11, when Israel was a child, I loved him. And I called my son out of Egypt. The reason God restores Israel is simply because it is God's nature to love. He chose to love Israel. A few verses later, verse 3 says, I myself taught Israel how to walk, leading him along by the hand. He paints himself as a father, taking his son by the hands, teaching him how to walk. Then later, in verse 4, I led Israel along with my ropes of kindness and love. I lifted the yoke from his neck, and I myself stooped to feed him. He now presents Israel as a calf. He's led along with soft ropes, tender ropes. God takes the yoke from his neck. God himself feeds Israel. Why does God restore us? Simply because he loves us. Our response many times is Israel's response. Verse 1, when he says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, he goes on to say, but the more I called to him, the farther he moved from me, offering sacrifices to the images of Baal, burning incense to idols. Then after teaching his son to walk, Hosea says of Israel, but he doesn't know or even care that it was I who took care of him. Israel's response to God was not an appropriate response. He ignored God. He didn't care about God. He followed other idols. Chapter 11, verse 8, God goes on. How can I give you up, Israel? How can I let you go? How can I destroy you like Admah or demolish you like Zeboim? My heart is torn within me and my compassion overflows. No, I'll not unleash my fierce anger. I'll not completely destroy Israel, for I'm God, not a mere mortal. I'm the Holy One living among you. I will not come to destroy. God loves Israel. So he decides to give Israel one more chance. Why does God restore us? Because he loves us. You know, there are times that we look at what's going on around us and I think we can question whether God loves us or not. Joni Eareckson was a young girl. She came from a very athletic family. In fact, her father wrestled in the 1932 Summer Olympics. Johnny was very active all of her life. She rode horses, she played tennis, she swam. Well, in 1967, she dove into the Chesapeake Bay, misjudging the shallowness of the water. She suffered a broken neck. There was a fracture between the fourth and fifth vertebra, and she became a quadriplegic. She became paralyzed from the shoulders down. Kind of normal that she went into deep depression. She was angry. She rejected the religious upbringing that she had. She began to have thoughts of suicide. But her family kept working with her, kept talking to her about God's love, even in the midst of what she was going through. And eventually she recognized it. She learned to paint, has actually become an accomplished artist. She formed Joni and Friends, an organization that reaches out to people with physical disabilities. Later in life, she became diagnosed with breast cancer. She suffered through that and came out cancer-free. Then she developed another cancer in the chest cavity. That's been operated, and just recently, just within the last year, she has been declared in remission. What a difficult life. And yet, Johnny understands God's love. She's gone on. She's written a couple of books. She's formed agencies that help people with disabilities, not only physical disabilities. She works with the Wounded Warrior Project. She was part of a think tank under Presidents Reagan and Bush, I believe, and actually became involved in writing the original draft of the Americans with Disabilities Act. She's written several books. She is a speaker. She too has a daily devotional thought. She said, God has chosen not to heal me, but to hold me. The more intense the pain, the closer his embrace. She said as well, the weaker we feel, the harder we lean on God. The harder we lean on God, the stronger we go. That's brought her to say, maybe the truly handicapped people are the ones that don't need God as much as I. God loves us. That's why he wants to restore us. What about you? What in your life needs restoration? Go to God. Thank him for his love today and look for signs of his love in your life. Please like, follow, and share with your friends this devotional. Tomorrow, we'll ask the question, what do I need to do when I mess up?